So today's session is on doing a good needs analysis. A very, very important step in the sales process is making sure that, we take the time to talk to our customers, to ask them a lot of questions, to gauge their motivations, their questions, their concerns, all of the things that we need to learn about what the customer is looking for and looking out of to go solar, and then being able to customize our presentation and our solution to that. So it's a very big part of it. If we can't establish what a customer's needs are, then we really are kind of flying blind at that point as to, where we're trying to take the presentation and the things that we should be stressing to the customer, and we potentially can hit and miss. I know from an experience standpoint, doing ride-alongs, a lot of times, you see a customer give a salesperson all of this like gold information as to how they want to be sold and what's going to motivate them, and the rep just doesn't catch it, and they glaze over it, and they end up proposing something that wasn't in line with the customer's wants and needs, and you see the whole energy just kind of get deflated from the presentation when the rep swings and misses. So our goal here on this training session is to make sure that you don't swing and miss, that you can identify what the customer's wants and needs are, and you can deliver a presentation and a solution in line with what their motivations are. So if we go to the second slide here, the basic concept and the action for needs analysis is pretty simple. We ask a lot of questions, and I wanted to keep that one super simple. That's what a needs analysis consists of. The goal, everyone's laughing here in the room, the goal here is to create a complete picture of the customer's buying motives, expectations, requirements, concerns, and lifestyle so you can successfully propose a solution and close the deal. So pretty simple objective for the needs analysis. And so on the next slide, it talks about what questions, should you be asking. And really, the questions that you should be asking are around these next few points here. Number one, questions that uncover the customer's motivations for going solar. I think it's probably a good thing to know, like why a customer is even considering looking at it, what their expectations of solar are. But point number two here is to pinpoint specific needs or requirements that we can solve. And that's what we do. We solve problems for people. The third point is to assess their current expectations of and knowledge about solar. How many times do we meet with a customer and their perception of solar is off of what reality really reflects? And so understanding if there are misconceptions or false expectations, maybe another solar company created false expectations for them, and we've got to diffuse those. Maybe done a lot of research and they know a lot about solar. Some people haven't done a whole bunch, and the key here is to know what people know and meet them where they're at. The next point here is to identify objections and concerns that need to be overcome. You want to know exactly what you're going into so you can start to formulate a plan to answer people's objections and concerns. Another point is to reveal the customer's current and future lifestyle. When you're solution for them, you've got to fit that solution into their current and their future lifestyle for their energy consumption, their financial lifestyle, all of those things. And then obviously the last point is to determine what it will take to move forward. You want to know clearly in your needs analysis what needs to be overcome and what needs to be in place for them to feel comfortable moving forward in the sales process. So if we go to the next slide, this explains a little bit about why it's important to conduct a thorough needs analysis. And so point number one talks about, gathering all the information you need to tailor a unique and compelling case for a Palmetto solution. So our solution has to be both unique to their needs. It has to be competitive if we're in a competitive situation, and also it has to be compelling to the customer. Number two, it identifies the customer's active needs and motivators so you can work together to address those needs. This helps build credibility while getting the customer to sell themselves on Palmetto. when a customer starts to give and rationalize the reasons why they want to move forward with solar, and specifically why they want to move solar with us, they're selling themselves. You know, when we say it, it's our job, right? When they say it, that's the truth. They're saying it. So we want to get people to a place where they're saying it. The next point, uncovers customers' latent needs, increasing the number of reasons a customer should go with Palmetto. So later on, when we go through needs analysis, we're going to talk about active needs versus latent needs and what the difference is between the two of those as well. Next point, it determines what customer knows about solar, so you and the customer can make the best use of the time. If there's stuff that they already know and they're good with, we should spend less time on that. And if there's stuff that they need to, we should be investing more time on the things that, you know, they need to know, and we need to invest time in. So that helps certainly save time. Provides the opportunity to show you care about the customer's unique situation to get the customer on your side early. We want to put people in a situation where they feel that we're in a consultation. It's us versus the utility. It's us versus the competition, not you versus them. Another point here, it defines the key customer requirements to help you choose the right solution to propose for the customer situation. And the final point, it uncovers objections early so they can be addressed well before closing. You know, the key to a successful presentation is that you've got all of their questions, all of their concerns, all of their objections out of the way before you ask them for their business. And the only way really to do that is to do a good needs analysis. So if we go to the next slide here, this talks about the solar doctor analogy. And it says, when you have a physical exam, a good doctor will get to know you, ask you questions about your ailment, ensure that they understand your pain point, and make a recommendation for your treatment. A great doctor will listen to everything you say, see the big picture, help you understand underlying problems you might not have recognized, and recommend a solution that will better suit you in the long run. So a good doctor takes your current situation and the current pain you're feeling and can make a recommendation. Great doctor forward thinks and thinks about, you know, the potential pitfalls that are coming, and does more of a preventative care. And so if you think about what we can do as great consultants, we can be a good doctor and take their current pain points and solve and give them remedies for that. But the other part of this, where we become a great salesperson, is we go and forecast the future issues that they maybe run into and do preventative care with them on their power and their energy needs. And so that's part of what a good needs analysis does. And so the next paragraph says, think of yourself as a solar doctor. Get to know the homeowner, ask questions to understand why the customer is considering solar and what the customer hopes to gain. Identify their pain points. Those are their active needs. And listen carefully. Look for underlying pain. Those are their latent needs, not just the pain they recognize. Ask questions that help the customer understand the big picture, and continue to ask questions until you are sure that you understand all of the drivers, requirements, motivators, and objections. So if we go to the next slide, it says listening is harder than it sounds, right? Just listen. That sounds easy enough to do, but it's hard. It's hard to do because a lot of times what we do when we want to actively listen is our minds as problem solvers start to work. So while we're listening, and we've all done this, we all start to formulate, we start to think about what are we going to say in response to these questions? How are we formulating, moving the process forward? And really what we need to do is stop. Before we start to think about the solution, we need to make sure we fully have heard everything the customer has said, what their needs and what their wants are before we start to formulate that. So it's really important that we do that and recognize that. Stop, pause, don't be so anxious to respond. It's not a speed test. We're not built for speed. We're built for understanding. So don't be in such a rush to just feel like you have to speak. You should be focused on listening. And so you will want to listen to the homeowner and think about what to say in response and strategize how to move the sale forward. When you try to juggle listening with your response, you will inevitably not be truly listening to the customer. To listen effectively takes discipline. Take a proactive approach to listening. And so some of the things that I would suggest we do is we focus when we're listening on taking notes. Because if you're taking notes, you're taking what the customer's saying and you're jotting those things down. There's also some strategy to taking notes, which we're going to talk about a slide or two. Making sure you have good eye contact with customers. If you want a customer to feel like you're listening to them, look at them. You know, in the body language is nodding your head, sitting upright, being attentive to them, not being, you know, looking off at a wall or glazed over. All of those are really important. The other point here is says homeowners will tell you how they want to be sold. They will give you all kinds of indications of how they want to be sold. The homeowner will tell you exactly how they would like to be sold and what they are looking for. You just have to listen. It is very effective to use their exact words when reaffirming their major pain point or motivation. So you just say back to them what they said to you is a very effective strategy. So listen, strategize, and respond once you feel like you've done a good job of listening and you understand what their major pain points are. So if we go on to the next slide, this talks a little bit about active and latent needs. And when we go through our sales training, our 2-day sales training, because really all the things we're doing over these next, what we did last week and this week and into next week, these are really introductions to these topics. There's a deep dive into all of these. So I want to introduce you guys just to latent and active needs. What that means, it says, through a progression of questions, you will uncover the prospect's needs. The active needs are needs the prospect recognizes. My electric bill is way too high. That's a active need. They know that. A latent need, it says latent needs are untapped needs that the prospect is not aware of yet. A latent need to them could be, my bill is too high, is active, but what is that bill going to be 5 years from now or 10 years from now? And establishing that and moving that need from latent, where they didn't recognize it, but we know it's a problem, to active, like, oh my God, my bill's going to double in 10 years. That's an active need now. And so part of our skill set in doing a needs analysis is moving these latent needs and moving them into the customer's mind to active needs. Because if a customer doesn't say, at the end of a needs analysis, my current circumstance with my power is unacceptable, I have to do something about this, everything you do from that point forward is irrelevant. If there's no need for a solution. There's no pain, there's no need for a remedy. And so people will have active needs. That's why you're there. They recognize something. But being able to take more of the latent needs, and that could be environmental, that could be the future of their energy costs, the unpredictability of their energy costs, things like that, that you move now into an active need. And the more active needs you can identify with the customer, the better it's going to be moving forward in the presentation. Okay? And then the last thing is analytical and emotional questions. You need to progress from analytical questions to emotional questions as you assess the customer's needs. So analytical questions, you're actually asking to gather information. How long have you been in the house? You know, what is your average monthly bill? You know, there's a list of questions. When you move to emotional questions, you're starting to probe thoughts and feelings and concerns and motivations. So a question would be, you know, I'm using James here, sitting next to me. James, if your bill was half of what it was today 10 years ago, and but your usage hasn't changed, it's just been inflation, and that inflation rate continues, so 10 years from now, it's going to double. How do you feel about that? Scary, isn't it? Now I'm probing to get an emotional response. Like, James is now scared. That's a good thing, because that's a pain point. Being scared is painful. So now there's a need for a solution. That's just a minor example of that. So we'll talk more about that when we do deep dive into the training sessions. But here are some top 10 questions you can ask your customer. And I'd love to bring it out to the whole sales team. If you have good questions that you ask that really generate great responses, please share those best practices. But here are some questions you can ask. Who referred you to us? And the objective of that is to build customer confidence in Palmetto, and also it prepares the customer to give referrals too. You know, hey, everyone's doing it. Everyone refers us because they love us. Second question, where are you in the process of deciding to go solar? The objective of that is to tailor your sales call to the customer's timeline. And, you know, hopefully their timeline is not in a year. And then we need to, like, obviously create some urgency there. But you also want to respect their timeline. And then obviously, you know, you've got to create maybe some more urgency there. What are you looking to go solar? I think I typed that in wrong. I apologize. But that defines the customer's buying motives. What do you already understand about how solar works? Identify customers' expectations. Identify areas that you might need to address. Maybe you need to do a little bit more solar 101 with the person. Or maybe you don't. They know a lot, and so don't waste your time doing solar 101. The customer's thinking, all right, I already know this. Why are you spending 10 minutes telling me how a system is grid tied? I already know how that works. You're wasting time here. Next question. Have funds set aside for solar, or are you looking for other options? Determine which solution best suits the customer. You know, if they say, no, we know, we have an idea of how much it costs, we have money saved, then you know that you're probably going to propose cash. And if they have no idea, you know you're going to, propose some type of finance solution, whether it's Mosaic or if you're in a market that has a PPA or whatnot. What is the most important to you about making decisions about going solar? Define the customer requirements. Why haven't you gone solar yet? Now, some people think the way that's worded sounds a little too, like you're like questioning them, you're chastising them. Why haven't you gone solar yet? Are you crazy? No, it's your tone. You know, just curious. Like, you've been thinking about it for a while, Ethan. Like, just why haven't you gone solar yet? It's more of a curiosity tone than it is a condescending tone. And that defines the customer's concerns and also potential objections that you're going to have to overcome. How is your bill affecting your habits in the home? It's a great question. And if people can say, well, I can't, do this or I can't do that because my electric bill is too high. That's a real pain point for people. Do you expect any changes in your energy usage in the future that transforms latent needs into active needs? You guys can tell by this slide I was probably getting really tired while I was building the slide deck. So I'll clean this up, but you guys get the gist. And then if I can show you a solution that saves you money and protects you from unpredictable rate hikes, is there anything else that will prevent you from moving forward? Just a great question. Like, hey, if I can show you a great solution, is there anything else that we need to uncover here that I need to address with you? And what you're doing when the customer says yes is you're getting buy-in, and then you've just executed an effective trial close with the customer. And if they don't say yes, there's stuff you can add to your notes of things you want to cover and address with the customer at that point. So those are all great questions to ask your customer during the needs analysis. All right. And then the last slide is some additional tips. Adhere to the 80-20 rule in conversation. 80% listening, 20% talking. Right? Give their customer enough time to respond after asking a question. Again, don't be in such a hurry to respond. It's not a race. Okay? Start with simple status questions to build a relationship and increase trust. And then build into more emotionally laden, questions. When looking for a customer to elaborate, ask these types of questions. Can you tell me more about blank. How do you mean blank? If you ask them a yes or no question, you're going to get a yes or no answer. You want to ask questions that are open-ended that allow them to elaborate on that. Ask productive and thoughtful questions instead of grilling the customer for information. Yeah, they're not they're not passing security here. Like they're not trying to enter the country. Like you're trying to assess their needs. So don't be rapid fire grilling them. They don't want to feel like they're under the white hot spotlight here. Clarify and summarize the customer's needs, objectives, and concerns back to them. This ensures that you are on the same page. So something simple as, Mr. Jones, before I go into the next section here and start to talk about it, I want to make sure that I've got all your questions and motivations. So number one, your motivation, number one, is primarily to save money. You also mentioned you're concerned about this. You weren't quite sure how the solar panels tie to your current utility service and things like so. I want to make sure I cover that. And then there was this other situation about solar is a significant investment. And you weren't sure if you had enough funds to just pay cash, or you might want to look at some financing options. So I want to make sure those were all of the things that you wanted me to cover with you today. Is there anything else that you'd want me to add to this list before we move forward? So you basically summarize everything with the customer. Make sure that you've covered, yes, that's everything I want to know today. And then here's the beautiful thing about when you do that. As you start to go through your presentation, and as you actually address all of those things that they listed, you get to actually physically cross them off on the pad of paper. It's such a great visual. Like you had mentioned that, you were concerned about this. And so did I answer that satisfactorily for you, Ron? Fantastic. All right. And I just cross it right off the pad of paper. It's just a great visual for customers. And then the last point here is to continue to ask questions throughout the meeting. So don't just think just because you did an needs analysis and asked a lot of questions that you're done asking questions. You're asking questions throughout the presentation, but this is a part where you're heavy in the questions. It's all about getting their needs, motivations, and objectives out on the table so you can best move forward with the rest of the solution. If you do this with a customer, you are putting them at ease. You're making them feel like you understand exactly what they're looking for, and they see that you're genuine, you're sincere, and your goal is to consult and help them solve for this issue. So all of those are just super important to do. So I am going to pause. That's the last slide I had, and as we always do, I want to open it up for some feedback. You guys are the shyest sales team I've ever had. Come on, I know you guys aren't shy. How many people? Actually, Dan's here, so Dan has some feedback.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I feel like this training specifically is really incredibly important for the whole SIT. Once you get the needs analysis, you know how the rest of this SIT's going to go. And in actuality, usually when I'm going through needs analysis, I know exactly how to sell them and what I'm going to sell them and how that, when I present the solution, how that's going to go by doing this piece. So I really think we need to sort of take away from here that this is super important and can essentially create the sale.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that, 100%. Like at this point, the customer should be like, wow, I really, really like this person and they're hearing me. Everyone wants to be understood. And when you demonstrate that you've heard them, you've nailed what their needs and motivations are, and then you say, Mr. Jones, I'm going to 100% make sure that I cover these as thoroughly as I can and make sure that I check in on each of these points to make sure that you have a satisfactory answer on it.
Right. We're going to send out that needs analysis page to all the reps so that they can. Those are great questions. I think that'd be good for everyone. Just that page to keep on their iPad.
Yeah. So two things. Every time I do one of these, I get the recording back. I do send this to Shane, and Shane puts it on Palmetto University. If you want the hard copy of all of these decks, I'm happy to do it. Second thing is I'm going to be I'm going to be doing these trainings. The first 2 weeks of March, I'm doing my road show, and we're doing 2-day trainings in the market. So we're going to take all of these training sessions, and we're going to deep dive into it. We're going to role play. We're going to do everything. You guys are going to be armed and dangerous. So, I can absolutely share them. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jim, I really want to add that this is probably the most fluid part of the meeting, and it's probably the one where you have the least amount of kind of resources at your disposal for. So it's the one that I would probably practice the most as a sales rep and really, really, really dive into getting successful at this section. You know, all the other ones, rapport probably being the other one that's similar to this. All the other ones you can kind of refer, whether you're referring to a proposal or you can refer to a website for Why Palmetto or whatever it may be, their energy consumption you can use to bill. This one, it can go down a lot of different ways, so you have to be very structured and on your feet and able to listen and respond. And that's the way that's going to direct to the entire rest of the meeting, and most importantly, set up whether or not you're able to close it and what you're going to close it with. So it's extremely important that reps practice this and think about all the different ways that a sales visit can go and how to steer it while not talking.
Absolutely. All right. Hey, I'd like to hear from, I got all the managers chiming in here. So I'd like to hear some feedback, even if it's not a question. I'd love to hear some feedback on this training session. Should I just start picking on people? Jason Smith out there? Jason, you out there? All right, I'm going down the list here. Rachel. Oh, I heard somebody on mute.
Hey, it's Rachel.
Hey, Rachel.
Hi.
How are you?
So, I'm good. So I would say for me that one of the things that and this is I think it was a great presentation, Jim. But for me, I think that in the beginning, I kind of did more of the talking and less listening. And, the past few weeks, I have really, Ethan's gone on a couple appointments with me, and I've really picked up on how he talks less and listens more. So it's been huge for me. Really has.
No, that's great. And listen, if you get one thing out of this, and it's just to listen more and talk less, you'll actually have success with this. That's great feedback. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rachel, and thanks for jumping in. I know I volunteered
Sure.
you, but I knew you'd rise to the occasion.
That's okay, no problem. Yeah.
All right. How about anybody from the Charleston team want to chime in? Mike, Vinny?
Hey, Jim, this is Michael. Hey, I was just going to say that yesterday and today's presentations have been extremely helpful for me. I think the needs analysis is big. I think sometimes going into the home and avoiding finding out what the customer's needs are is a huge error that can lose many sales. So I know I've been guilty of that. I'm sure other people have been as well, not correctly identifying the needs and giving them solutions maybe that they didn't warrant, and then possibly missing out on a sale. So I think for me, this training and yesterday's training have been, I'd say, very insightful and very helpful personally.
Great. And I agree. So I think that's super important. Hey, the one thing that I think I might have missed the slide. I'm going to go back here. There was a slide on. No, I didn't. So actually, I'm thinking about a different thing. One of the things that we'll talk about with needs analysis is when you have a customer, identifying a customer's personality and mirroring their personality and things like that as well. We did talk about that a little bit on yesterday's training session, but there's also an important thing to do when you're doing needs analysis is to continue to identify a person's personality and whatnot as well. All right, so I'll leave one more opportunity for any feedback or questions, and then we'll call it a training session.
Hey, Jim, this is Dale. I just wanted to have one feedback comment, if you can hear me.
Sure.
So since I've been training, I've been focused very much on how I'm going to respond to a customer, how I'm going to answer all the questions. So what you brought out today, which was important, which I'm going to take to heart, is just to slow down, to listen, not think about what I'm saying next, but focus more on what they're talking about and understand their needs much better in that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll share one, and I appreciate that. I'm going to share one quick story, and then we'll go off. And it's a great analogy. There was I heard this in a sales training. I don't know if it was a fictional story or if it was a real story, but there was this young kid who worked at a department store, and he worked in he worked in sporting goods, and there was a heat wave that just came in, and all of a sudden there was a flood of people coming into house, and they wanted to buy air conditioners. So they pulled this kid off the sporting goods and you just got to go, help out there. And he didn't know anything about, air conditioning. So what he did was he says, well, I don't know anything about it. So he instinctively said, I've got to figure out what to do here. And what he did is he learned how to ask a lot of questions. So he asked a lot of questions to the customers about what they needed, how big their room, and just try to do the best he could, giving the customers guidance on what was the right air conditioning unit to buy. Because he didn't know, so he first wanted to understand before he gave any recommendations or solutions. Make a long story short, he sold a record of number of air conditioners over that heat wave. But then they said, well, why don't you stay in this department? You're really good. And he did. But his sales numbers continued to stay high. But over time, as you started to learn the technology of air conditioning and the right sizes and Freon or whatever features you have about air conditioners, his sales started to slip, and people started wondering why he should be getting better. And what happened was, as he learned more, he converted from being a person who first seek to understand people's needs and goals to then telling people what he knew. Right. And if you think about it, we do that a lot in our business. As we start to get proficient and understand and perfect our craft and the knowledge of solar and all these other things, I think we almost by habit want to tell people how much we know, as opposed to first and foremost always seeking to understand their wants, their needs. It's just a cute little anecdote story to just kind of take with you about the importance of a needs analysis. So anyway, guys, that's the training session for today. Go out and have a spectacular sales day, and talk to you all tomorrow. Take care.
All right.
Thanks, Jim.